Hello friends, good morning and welcome to this new class. Now we are dealing with poverty. In the last class we saw how poverty is affecting the people of India from state to state. Some states are able to remove the poverty to a great extent, while some other states, almost half of the population is living below poverty line. So they don't have the money for meeting the requirements, the basic requirements. They are struggling to live. Now let us see the global scenario, the whole world. What is the situation? How are the people in the whole world living? Are they living in poverty or are they living above poverty line? Let us see. You can take page number 35. So the proportion of people in developing countries living in extreme economic poverty, defined by the World Bank as living on less than $1 per day, has fallen from 28% in 1990 to 21% in 2001. So we said in the last class, according to the World Bank, for a person to survive per day is $1. So in the world in 1990, it was 28% of the total population of the world were living under poverty line. Then in 2001, that means after 11 years, it is being reduced. Now only 21% of the people are living below poverty line. Before it was 28, now it has come down to 21. Although there has been a substantial reduction in global poverty, it is marked with great regional differences. So, we say there is, just as in the case of India, the poverty has come down in India, but it is in average. If you look at some states, it is becoming worse. Some places it is improving greatly. The same way, it is also in the world level, it is regional imbalance is there. Some countries are very rich and some countries are very poor. So it is from region to region, it is different. Poverty declined substantially in China and Southeast Asian countries as a result of rapid economic growth and massive investments in human resource development. So some of the countries like China and other countries in the Southeast Asia, they have reduced the poverty to a great extent. What is the reason? Because they introduce lot of economic activities like foreign investments in human resource development. So they invested a lot of things to build hospitals, to build schools and so human resource was developed, and as a result the poverty was removed to a great extent from China and other Southeast Asian countries. Number of poor in China has come down from 606 million in 81 to 212 million in 2001. So within 20 years, how many millions of poverty has been removed? So in the year 81, 606 million people were there living below poverty line in China. After 20 years, it has been reduced to 212. See, from 606 to 212. So almost 400 million people have been uplifted economically. They have been brought above the poverty line. So that's a great improvement in China. In the countries of Southeast Asia, that is India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, the decline has not been as rapid. So some other Southeast Asian countries like India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, the decline is not so rapid. So in China, the poverty decline has become very rapid, very quick. But in other countries, it is not so quick as in China. Despite decline in the percentage of the poor, the number of poor has declined marginally from 475 million in 1881 to 428 million in 2001. So there is a little bit of reduction is there. In 1981 it was 475 million people. Then after 20 years it has come down to 428. So almost some 22 or 23 million people have been brought above the poverty line. Because of different poverty line definition, poverty in India is also shown higher than the national estimates. So different countries are following different method to measure the poverty estimates. Therefore, the method that we use in India is not the same as the method that is used by Pakistan or Sri Lanka. So each country developed their own method. Therefore, we cannot have an exact accurate. We cannot say exactly who are the more poor people. Where are the more poor people in India or in Sri Lanka or Pakistan, because they are following their own definition. Now, in sub-Saharan Africa, poverty in fact rose from 41% in 1981 to 46% in 2001. So in all other countries, poverty has been reduced at least a little bit. But in Saharan African countries, what happened? The poverty was increasing. So in 81 it was 40%, and then in 2001 it became 46%. It was increased by 5%. That means more people became poor there. And you can see the graph there, 3.3. 3.3 is there. That is the table, and the graph is here, 3.3. You can see how in 1981 poverty was very high in most of the countries. Then in 1990 it came down little bit. Then 2001 it came down more. So from top it is slowly coming down. By the time it reached 2001 it was already quite low. But one country, Sub-Arabian Sub-Saharan Africa, it is not going down, it is slightly going up. See, all the other countries are coming down a little bit, but other countries are, only this country is going up. So what is the reason behind? Let's see. So poverty has also resurfaced in some other former socialist countries like Russia, where officially it was non-existent earlier. So early in Russia, poverty was not there. Everybody was rich enough. Everybody was above the poverty line. But after some time, it came back there or resurfaced there. So far there was no poverty, but suddenly some people became poor there. And table 3.2 shows the proportion of people living under poverty in different countries as defined by the International Poverty Line. Means population below $1 per day. The Millennium Development Goals of the United Nations calls for reducing the proportion of people living on less than $1 per day to half the 1990 level by 2015. So it is the United Nations taking initiative that bring down the number of people to half, at least by 2015. So 2015 is already over. We are not sure whether it is already achieved the goal or not. But United Nations was taking some initiative to bring down the number of poor people from make it by half the total amount. And you can see here the table 2.2, some of the international poverty lines. So how many percentage of people are living below poverty line? That means those who don't have the income of $1 per day. So in Nigeria, 70.8% of the people don't have even $1 per day. That is really pathetic condition. So Nigeria is very poor. And Bangladesh, 36%. India 35%. So there is no much difference between India and Bangladesh. The poverty is somewhat same. Then Pakistan has got only 17% people who are very poor. Then China has got only 16%. Brazil only 8.2%. Indonesia 7.5%. Sri Lanka 5.6%. So in these countries, Sri Lanka is the much better position, who has avoided or who has eliminated the poverty to a large extent, and they have made that almost all the people, 95% of the people, are living above poverty line. So they have really done well, we can say. So we saw all over the world poverty is a real concern, and even the United Nations are taking care in order to bring down the number of people who are poor, so that make everyone self-sufficient and provide them enough money to manage their daily affairs and so on. And let us see how far, or what is the reason, what is the causes behind the poverty, causes of poverty. The causes of poverty. So there were a number of causes for the widespread poverty in India. So if you think in connection with India, we can see there are number of cases are there, number of causes are there. One historical reason is the low level of economic development under British colonial administration. So one reason is the British administration. So when British was ruling India for 150, 200 years, there was no economic development at all. They were worried about development in England, not in India. So the people were made to work and work in order to make England richer, and they carried away all the raw materials from here. And therefore there was no industry here, no economic activity here, and the development did not take place at all. So the poor became more and more poor. Then the policies of the colonial government ruined traditional handicrafts and discouraged development of industries like textiles. So lot of handicraft industries were there in India, but the British discouraged all that. They said no need industry here, no need textile industry at all. We will bring clothes from England and then you can buy. That was the system that British was introducing, so that their clothes will be sold in Indian market. They could make more profit. Then the low rate of growth persisted until the 1980s, and this resulted in less job opportunities and low growth rate of incomes. So there was no job opportunity. Since economy is not developing, there is no job opportunity, and therefore all the people's income went down. Income was very low, and this was accompanied by a high growth rate of population, and at the same time the population of India was growing higher and higher. So the income is low, but the population is increasing more and more, and the two combine to make the growth rate of per capita income very low. So the income is low and the population is high, therefore the per capita income, the average income of the person, was very low. The failure of both the fronts, promotion of economic growth and population control, perpetuated the cycle of poverty. So the government failed to do anything, failed to improve the financial condition or economic condition of the people, and also failed to control the population. Both fronts, from both area, people or the government failed. Therefore the poverty increased higher and higher, and the population also increased higher and higher, and therefore the poverty increased. The poverty, the number of poor people increased more and more. So that is one reason the British government did not do anything. Then with widespread of irrigation and the Green Revolution, many job opportunities were created in the agriculture sector. But the effects were limited to some parts of India. The industries both in public as well as in private sector did provide some jobs, but these were not enough to absorb all the job seekers. So after India got independence, the British are chased out from India, and Indian people, the Indian government introduced the Green Revolution. You must have heard about the Green Revolution, using high methods or modern methods of farming, and the production was increased. So Green Revolution was introduced and it was successful, but it was not spread throughout the country. Green Revolution was limited only to the north and the central India, Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan. These are the four states mainly benefited from Green Revolution. So there was also some kind of investment by the government, the public sector as well as the private sector. New industries were set up. So some people got job, but we already said the population was very high during the British regime, and therefore there was no enough opportunity for the people to receive the jobs. There are so many people waiting for job and few people were given job. So something was better than nothing, but all the people could not be satisfied, all the people could not get job. Then, unable to find proper job in cities, many people started working as rickshaw pullers, vendors, construction workers, domestic servants, etc. So all the people they wanted to have good job, office job, and so, but they were not able to get that job. Therefore, what did they do? They started looking for some kind of job, at least to get some money to survive. So some started working as a rickshaw pullers, then some are working as a vendors, shopkeepers, and construction workers, making buildings and so on. Then domestic servants working in others' house. So people began to do different work that was available. So they looked for a better job, but it was not available. Therefore, they began to look for some other jobs which are not that good, but they wanted to do something to survive, to avoid poverty. Then, with irregular small incomes, these people could not afford expensive housing. They started living in slums on the outskirts of the cities, and the problems of poverty, largely in rural phenomenon, also became a feature of the urban sector. So these people who were looking for a good job but they did not get, therefore they began to do the small jobs, and those who do these small jobs, rickshaw pullers, vendors, house servants and so on, they cannot get good salary. Their salary will be very low. So with that they will not be able to make a good house, they will not be able to have all the comforts of their life and so on. So they were just able to manage. So the poverty still continued. They could not become very rich. They were just managing from hand to mouth. Then another feature of high poverty rates has been the huge income inequalities. So another reason why there is so much of poverty is income inequalities. The income inequality. So that means the income of the country or the money of the country is not divided equally. It is where some people are getting more, some people are getting very less and so on. So one of the major reasons for this is the unequal distribution of land and other resources. So the reason why income is not equally distributed is that the natural resources like land and other things is not distributed equally. Some farmers have got plenty of land and some farmers have no land at all. They are going and working in others' field. So this natural resource like land is not distributed equally. Therefore, the people cannot work in their own land. They don't have land to work. Therefore, they have to always depend on others, and that makes them very poor. They go and work in others' field and they get very little wage. They get very little pay. Therefore, they cannot overcome their poverty. Then Despite many policies, we have not been able to tackle the issue in a meaningful manner. Major policy initiatives like land reforms, which aimed at redistribution of assets in rural areas, have not been implemented properly and effectively by most of the state governments. So when government realized that the land is not distributed equally, government wanted to bring a policy called ceiling of the land. That means a person can have maximum this much amount of land. Those who have got more than that, they should give back to the government, and the government will distribute it to the poor people. So government decided such kind of policies, but the government, especially the state governments, they were not very much interested in implementing it. They just ignored it. If they were to implement it, then poor people also would have got some land and they would have become rich by now, and the poverty would have been eliminated from our country. And since lack of land resources has been one of the major causes of poverty in India, proper implementation of policy could have improved the life of millions of rural poor people. So if government were to implement that land policy properly, saying that one person can maximum have this much amount, fix an amount, fix an area, and those who have got more than that should give back the land to the government. So if government were to implement that policy properly, strictly, then poverty would have been reduced to a great extent in our country. Then many other socio-cultural and economic factors also are responsible for poverty. So long we are talking about three different reasons. Then there is also some socio-cultural and economic factors are also there, which is responsible for creating poverty in our country. In order to fulfill social obligations and observe religious ceremonies, people in India, including the very poor, spend a lot of money. So that is the nature of Indian people. If they feel that there is a celebration, there is a cultural celebration, or there is a religious celebration, even the poor people, they try to celebrate it in a very grand way. They may not have enough money to meet their daily expenses and essential things to buy, but they will, when the festival comes, they will spend all the money that they have. Then their pocket will be empty, nothing will be there for tomorrow. So that kind of uncalculation, no proper planning about the money that they have, that also is making them poor. So every year this festival comes and they spend all the money, then they become poor. Again they start working hard, they earn some money, and when the festival comes they will finish it up. So their life is going on in the same circle. They are not able to come out of that. That is the lack of reasoning, lack of education, lack of proper planning how to manage their economy. And small farmers need money to buy agriculture inputs like seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, etc. Since poor people hardly have any savings, they borrow. And unable to repay because of poverty, they become victims of indebtedness. So the high level of indebtedness is both cause and effect of poverty. So another reason why the people become poor is because of taking loan. So there is festivals are there. Another one is taking loan. That is another reason why the people are becoming poor. They are taking loan, and before cultivation they will take loan, and after the harvesting they are supposed to give back. But since they are very poor, they are unable to give back. So the money lender will say, you come and work in my farm, you come and work in my garden, and I will not pay you. So till you finish giving back all that money, you have to pay, you have to work in my farm free of cost. So those poor people, they have no other way. They continue to do that, they obey that, and they go on working without any payment, and so they continue to remain poor. They cannot become rich. So that is another problem that the farmers in our country are facing. They have no one to turn to. Suppose the government is able to give them loan with a low interest, then suddenly these poor farmers will be in a better position to borrow money from the bank and give back later, so they don't have to work whole year without any payment in somebody else's field. So government will have to take some extra initiative in order to help these poor farmers so that they can overcome their poverty. So government has to make policy, and government will have to implement those policies in a very strict way, otherwise they are not going to help to eliminate the poverty. Now let us see what are the methods that government is going to take. Anti-poverty measures. Anti-poverty measures. What are the methods or measures or plans that government has got in order to avoid this poverty from the country? So removal of poverty has been one of the major objectives of Indian developmental strategy. So to remove this poverty, that is the priority of every government in India. And the current anti-poverty strategy of the government is based broadly on two plans, on two stages they are planning to do. One is promotion of economic growth, and second one is targeted anti-poverty programs. So government is planning to do something in order to remove this poverty. What are they? First they will try to improve the economic conditions. They will try to promote the economic growth. So first one is economic growth. So economic growth, and second one is by anti-poverty programs. So they do a lot of anti-poverty programs. So these are the two plans that the government has in mind in order to remove the poverty from the people. What are they? One is to improve the economic growth, and second one is to conduct anti-poverty programs, arrange some programs which will work against the poverty, which will help to remove the poverty of the people. That is what government is planning to do. Let us see how the government is implementing that programs. So over a period of 30 years lasting up to early 80s, so soon after the independence, government started this program, and after 30 years there were little per capita income growth and not much reduction in poverty. So first 30 years after independence, we see there was no much improvement in the economic growth, and the poverty continued as it is. There was no much reduction. We saw in the graph also, from 1950 to 1980 there was no much reduction of poverty. Official poverty estimates, which were about 45% in 1950, remained the same even in the early 80s. So in the 1950 the poverty was 45%, and even after 30 years that poverty continued to remain the same. Did not increase the economic condition of the people. Since the 80s, India's economic growth has been one of the fastest in the world. But after 1980, the economic growth began to pick up very fast. And comparing to the world, other countries in the world, we can say the economic growth of India was much faster than all the others. The growth rate jumped from an average about 3.5% in the year 1970 to about 6% during 1980-90s. So in the year 1970, the economic growth rate was just 3.5%. After 10 years, it was almost become double. It became 6%. And the higher growth rates have helped significantly in the reduction of poverty. So this higher economic growth that happened only after 30 years of independence. So government had to do a lot of work, and as a result, after 30 years, the poverty has been reduced. Immediately, the growth was not there. Government had to build a lot of dams, industries, so much work was done during the 30 years. Then the result began to come up, and the economic growth was increasing, and the people began to become richer and richer. The economic growth was growing higher. Then therefore it is becoming clear that there is a strong link between economic growth and poverty reduction. So from this example we can know that if the economy is growing well, then the poverty will be reduced. So these two are connected. When economic growth is going low and low, the poverty will increase. And the economic growth is growing higher and higher, the poverty will decrease. So these two are connected. And the economic growth widens opportunities and provides the resources needed to invest in human development. So when the economic growth is growing higher and higher, what happens? There is more and more economic opportunity. More people will get job. There will be more income, higher wages and so on. And we will be able to invest on human resources as well. So people will be able to go to school, learn more things, get a good skill, better skill, learn more experience and so on. So a person with better education, better skill, better knowledge, he will be able to work better, and then economic growth will be still better and better. And this also encourages people to send their children, including the girl child, to schools in the hope of getting better economic returns from investing in education. So all the times people are thinking this girl is going to get married and go to another house, boy's house. So what is the use of educating? She is not going to do any benefit for my family. Therefore, most of the people were telling girls, you don't need to get education. You sit at home, do some work, clean the house, all those. But now people have changed that idea. Even girls can get education, and they can get job, and they can get salary, and they can help the family. So that idea has changed because of this economic development. Then, however, the poor may not be able to take direct advantage from the opportunities created by economic growth. Moreover, growth in the agriculture sector is much below expectations, and this has a direct bearing on poverty, as a large number of poor people live in villages and are dependent on agriculture. So we said the economy was growing higher and higher, and the people were benefiting from it. The poverty ratio was reduced. But one area that was not developing was the area of agriculture. So there was a green revolution, but that was limited to only a certain area, especially the northern side. But there was no much development in the agricultural field, especially if the small farmers were cultivating in their own small field, and there was no much development. They were not getting much help from the government. Their production remained the same and little. Therefore, those farmers continued to remain poor. They were not able to improve their financial conditions. That was the problem. So in the industry area, there was high development and people got better jobs and so on. But those farmers, they continued to remain poor. So government had to do something more in order to uplift even the small farmers. So the bigger farmers, they were benefiting, but the smaller farmers with a small piece of land, they were struggling, they were continuing to remain poor. So that was a drawback from the side of development. The farmers were ignored. So we shall stop today, and we'll begin again in the next class with the same topic. We'll discuss about what are the government's initiative, what are the government's program in order to help to eradicate the poverty from our country. So thank you for listening. Have a nice day. Bye.